The faint light of a winter afternoon streamed through the transparent glass walls of the conservatory, casting a soft golden glow over everything. The steady ticking of the wall clock echoed in the silent space, a constant reminder that time was slipping away, slowly but relentlessly. Jack sat quietly on a wooden chair, his thin hands resting on his lap, his gaze distant and unfocused. He no longer saw the beauty of the garden he once took so much pride in. The lush green potted plants and the vibrant winter flowers now blurred into the dull canvas of his somber existence. The glass door behind him slid open, and Shannon stepped in, bringing a gust of cold wind with her. She wore an elegant fur coat, her posture still graceful and poised despite the lines time had etched onto her face. But today, there was something different in her eyes, a mixture of hesitation, uncertainty, and a touch of coldness Jack had never seen so clearly before. "Jack," she called softly, breaking the heavy silence. He turned to her, his eyes weighed down by fatigue and tinged with caution, as if bracing for yet another unpleasant exchange between them. Shannon stood there, her shadow stretching long across the conservatory floor. A moment of silence passed before she finally spoke, her voice steady but tinged with hesitation. "Jack," she began, carefully choosing her words, "I've accepted Nicholas's invitation to stay with him tonight. Please don't take it the wrong way." "So, you're planning to spend the night with your lover, is that it?" Jack asked, his tone dripping with bitterness. Knowing her husband's temper, Shannon kept her voice as calm as she could. "Nicholas is not my lover," she replied. "We just share many common interests, and I genuinely enjoy his company. I don't know what this means for us, or where it will lead, but I can't abandon him right now. Jack, I know this isn't easy for you, but I hope you can accept this reality. It doesn't change how much I care for you, but Nicholas has become an important part of my life." Jack's face twisted with disdain. "I can imagine what Louise would say if she knew you and Nicholas had turned me into some pathetic fool." Shannon's eyes flared with frustration as she stomped her foot like a defiant child. "You're not a fool to me, or to Nicholas." "That's exactly what I am," Jack shot back, his voice laced with contempt. "A fool is someone whose wife spends her nights with another man, isn't it?" Shannon took a deep breath, her voice lowering. "No, I don't have another man. There's only Nicholas. And as for Louise, your assumptions are wrong. She wouldn't leave you alone if I weren't here." Jack shrugged skeptically. "I don't think Louise would play the other woman for me." Suddenly, Shannon's hand shot up, delivering a sharp slap that echoed through the room. Jack staggered back in shock, the sting of her action visible on his face. "Violence won't solve anything," he said, his voice low but firm. Shannon's voice trembled as though she wanted to apologize, but instead, she responded defiantly. "I'm not the person you think I am. And yet you're ready to live with Nicholas, share a bed with him, and perhaps even—" Jack's voice cracked with anger, leaving his accusation unfinished. "Perhaps," Shannon admitted softly, but with a tinge of sarcasm. "But whatever happens with Nicholas doesn't diminish what we've had." Jack wisely kept his thoughts to himself, knowing that saying more would only deepen the chasm between them. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that Shannon had betrayed his trust in the most ruthless way. Before leaving, Shannon leaned down and placed a light kiss on Jack's cheek. "Don't forget to take your medicine while I'm gone," she said, her tone gentle but firm. Jack let out a bitter laugh. "Why would you care if I take my medicine or not? If I die, you'll be free to be with Nicholas." Shannon shook her head firmly. "No, that's not true. I still care for you, and don't want to see you unwell." Her voice softened. "You need to take your blood pressure and heart medication. We're not young anymore. You're 71, and I'm 67. Jack watched as Shannon's luxury sports car disappeared into the darkness, carrying her to her rendezvous with Nicholas, the widower of her late sister. Nicholas lived just 60 yards away, a short distance in most places, but one that carried immense significance in this rural setting. As Shannon drove down the familiar road, memories of the fateful day 16 years ago flooded her mind. It was the day her sister, Louise, had died in a tragic workplace accident. The grief had left Nicholas adrift, and Shannon, driven by compassion, stepped in to help him through his loss. Her visits, born out of sympathy, gradually grew more intimate, though Shannon couldn't pinpoint exactly when the relationship shifted. She only remembered the moment of reckoning when Jack discovered the truth. The heated argument, charged with emotions and accusations, ended abruptly when Jack collapsed, clutching his chest in pain. Though he survived the heart attack thanks to prompt medical intervention, Jack became a man burdened not only by physical ailments, but also by an emotional wound that refused to heal. As time went on, Shannon continued her clandestine relationship with Nicholas, despite Jack's protests and threats of divorce. To her, it was not merely an affair, but a way to help Nicholas cope with his loss. 16 years had passed. Jack had come to terms with the situation in his own way. But deep down, he knew Shannon's actions were driven not just by compassion, but also by her own desires. One crisp morning, Shannon left the house to visit Nicholas, leaving Jack alone in the conservatory. In the quiet stillness, he began to confront the reality of their fractured relationship. By midday, the harsh sunlight turned the glass conservatory into an oven. Jack drifted off in his favorite chair, dreaming of an endless desert where scorching sand stretched as far as the eye could see. But the dream was fleeting. He woke to the oppressive heat, struggling to rise. Weak and frail, he collapsed onto the cold floor, his feeble cries for help unheard. When Shannon returned, the sight that greeted her would haunt her forever. Jack lying motionless on the conservatory floor, his hand outstretched toward the door, as if pleading for help. Overwhelmed by grief and guilt, she realized too late the weight of her choices. Now, all she had left was emptiness and a lifelong burden of regret. Shannon knelt beside Jack, her trembling hands brushing against his cold face. "Jack! Jack!" She choked out his name, but all she received in return was a chilling silence. Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the unspeakable pain in her heart. In a panic, Shannon reached for her phone to call for help, but deep down, she knew it was too late. The moments that followed passed like a blurry nightmare. The paramedics arrived and tried to resuscitate Jack, but their efforts were in vain. His death was pronounced on the spot, leaving Shannon in the paralyzing grip of reality. The days that followed, news of Jack's sudden passing spread quickly through the small countryside town. The neighbors whispered, not only about his unexpected death, but also about Shannon's relationship with Nicholas. Rumors became an invisible weight pressing down on her shoulders. Nicholas came to see her the morning after the funeral. He brought a bouquet of white lilies, but his eyes were filled with turmoil. "Shannon, I'm so sorry. If I hadn't kept you that night, maybe you would have been home with Jack," he said quietly. Shannon looked at him, her gaze a mixture of pain and reproach. "Nicholas, no one forced me. I chose to leave, and that choice was mine alone. I left Jack by himself. I'm the only one responsible." Nicholas sighed deeply, bowing his head in silence. "I don't know how to help you," he finally admitted. Shannon shook her head, her tears still falling. "No one can help me. I broke everything. I lost Jack, and now he'll never forgive me." A week later, Shannon decided to write a letter to herself as a way to confront the truth. In the letter, she recounted everything that had happened, from her relationship with Nicholas to the loneliness Jack endured. She confessed that she hadn't just betrayed Jack, but had also betrayed herself, the woman who once vowed to protect the happiness of their family. When she finished the letter, she placed it inside a small wooden box that Jack had cherished, along with old photos of the two of them. It was her way of preserving a part of their memories, even though she knew it couldn't undo the pain she had caused. Shannon realized she couldn't continue living in the house that had once been their home. She decided to sell it and leave the countryside to start over in a distant place. Before departing, she visited the winter garden one last time, standing quietly by the chair where Jack used to sit. Nicholas didn't follow Shannon. He stayed behind in the countryside, facing his own solitude. Meanwhile, Shannon, on her journey to a new beginning, carried her guilt as an inseparable part of her life. Deep down, she hoped that one day she might find forgiveness from Jack, from Nicholas, and from herself. She whispered into the still air, her voice soft and filled with regret. Jack, I'm sorry. I only hope you can rest in peace and find the serenity I couldn't give you in life. As she walked out of the garden, Shannon felt a gentle breeze brush against her, as if it were Jack's final farewell. She smiled through her tears, knowing it was the last time she would leave this place.